Hi friends, I want to take a very quick moment to ask a favor of you. We have an annual survey that helps us to better understand all of you. It only takes a few minutes and your feedback is so very appreciated. Link to the survey is in the show notes. Thanks guys. What's poppin', everybody? Hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
And you can't get rid of me.
I really can't.
I'm stuck.
Otherwise, people, what they would get, I think, is a lot of how we ended last week's episode, which was just me making up history along the way.
Do you know that whilst we were making up the secret pirate history of Abraham Lincoln and his definitely real treasure lost at sea somewhere, probably in Lake Michigan. Just guessing. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
No one knows. No one knows where the lost treasure of Lincoln in Lake Michigan is. But someone sent us on the Reddit this like very hilarious article about the history of piracy during the Civil War.
Really?
Yes. So apparently, like, the Northern forces had a massive navy, or well, I don't know what counts as a massive navy. They had a massive navy compared to the Confederate Navy, which is to say they had like 75 boats and the Confederates had 0.
Whoa.
So like none, no navy at all. So the Confederates like, we are at a significant disadvantage. We can't get through any waterways anywhere. We can't, like, you know, they were totally at their wits' end as what to do. So these two guys came up with a plan where they were basically going to hire, I guess what it amounts, they were called privateers, but it amounts to like mercenary ships, basically.
Okay.
Basically,
all right.
AKA, I think it was Lincoln who basically were just like, the privateers, AKA pirates, no go.
Okay. So
if you engage in this, you in trouble, which of course, if you're at war, you're like, well, we don't even, respect the rules of your government. So we're going to do it anyway. But
it's true. Yeah.
So, but as the story goes, and because I was reading through it, it's like just the most hilarious, one of the biggest flops in like, just like maritime war ever, basically, was this decision to try and do like privateering to attack the Northern forces during the Civil War.
Did it just not work?
Well, they had a lot of people who were very interested right away. And they had like one big victory from a boat that was going to, it was a northern boat, but it was heading to New Orleans and it was like carrying fruit. And they successfully like captured the boat. But as it were, the boat was like already bringing resources to Southern troops. So,
wow.
So they kind of just like immediately shot themselves in the foot.
So they infiltrated someone who was already headed their way.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't good. Then they had not many other successes. At one point, they had a crew that managed to capture like 9 boats, which was a pretty good win, except then as they were sailing those boats back to Florida, they got caught in a gale force wind. 7 of them sank, and the remaining 2 got recaptured by the Northern forces. So there was just this like comical number of total failures.
I don't understand why maritime battle would have even been super relevant during the Civil War.
I am not one who understands the battle mechanics of the Civil War.
Maybe this is what I like to think is that they were like, hey, do you guys want to go play Seaball?
Seaball?
Like ball at sea.
Ball at sea.
Like it's like there's a huge field over here if you guys feel like doing field ball.
Yeah.
Or hear me out now, Seaball. and what they do is they go out to sea and they play ball.
They play ball. The image that immediately comes to my mind is like ship-to-ship tennis. With the ocean itself sort of serving as the net.
Right. Yeah.
If you can land the ball on the opposing ship, that's inbounds.
Maybe the ball is something dangerous.
Yeah.
Like maybe something kind of spiky.
Yeah. It's got spikes.
It's got
look out.
Yeah. Be careful.
Dangerous game
when playing Seaball.
It does
feel like the type of thing where the proximity the two ships would have to each other is comically close.
Yeah.
Like you'd be like out, paddling your canoe at sea,
Right.
obviously, and you look over and you see these two giant battleships, and they're like 30 feet from each other. It's like, what are they? They playing Seaball?
Do you know this?
Can I have winner?
This has just summoned up a memory for me. Oh man, I haven't thought about this in so long. But in fact, at 4-H camp one year in summer, I believe, is that where Carp Girl happened? Was that the 4-H center?
No, different camp. That was
Okay.
physics camp.
Physics camp. Okay. This was at 4-H camp. So the way 4-H here works is that each day there's like 4 different activities or classes or whatever you're supposed to go do throughout the day.
Sure.
And one of mine was canoeing. That was one of the things I signed up for. And apparently I was the only person in this particular class who had ever been in a canoe before, as far as I could tell. So everyone else was sort of just like learning what paddles were, how boats floated, had no idea how to make a canoe move in the water, which to me feels like such second nature, like how to make the canoe move.
Oh yeah, sure.
I've been in so many canoes. I've paddled so many boats.
It seems like at this age, probably, I bet you would have done it like 6 times, but that would be a lot more experience than the average 4-H goer.
So anyway, I had mounds of experience more than anyone else.
Yeah.
Mounds. I mean, you could physically see them.
So were you first pick for Seaball?
Well, so on the last day, they finally introduced this game, and the game is, if I recall, they had a gallon Ziploc bag.
Okay.
And in the gallon Ziploc bag was 9 tennis balls. So it was effectively a big flat floating square, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And the goal was for either team to paddle out, acquire the Seaballs as they were, and land them in the other team's canoe, by using your paddles.
Jay, this is Seaball.
This is Seaball, basically.
I'm so happy about this. Now I want to have a meetup where we all adorn life jackets and play a quality match of Seaball.
A quality match of Seaball. My memory of it is that for the most part it was, because there were only 2 teams and there was about 6 people per boat or something, and if memory serves, it was about 20 minutes of 11 people not knowing what they were doing and me eventually landing the Seaball in the enemy canoe.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did it?
I did it.
Did you go home a hero that day?
I was a hero, Ben.
Now the real question is, while they are just tennis balls, did the other team at least have the decency to rip a hole in the bottom of their own hull and go down with the ship?
Right, as is tradition in Seaball.
I mean, look, it's a noble sport.
It's a noble sport. You lose, you sink your ship.
Even if it wasn't going down anyway.
That's right.
If you're going to play the Seaball, you need to be willing to deal with
you have to capsize in some way.
The ramifications of the sport.
That's right.
That is very interesting. It actually does seem like a really good way, because paddling on a lake.
Yeah.
It's a lake.
Yeah, it's a lake.
Paddling on a lake in a canoe is really not the most fun thing in the world.
Oh, it's not. It's not the intended. Body of water for a canoe.
It's way more fun going down the river, where the river is helping you along the way.
You're mostly just steering then.
You are mostly steering, yeah. So this actually reminds me, so when I was growing up, I went to a different camp on multiple occasions that was called, I think it was Phoebe Needles.
The canoe camp.
The canoe camp, yeah. I went canoe camping twice, and the 2 different trips, one of them was on the James River and one of them was on the New River. On the trip where we went on the New River, it was very funny because it was, I think we've talked about the summer camp effect before, where you go and you're with all new people and they don't really know what your position in your existing social order might be, and so it's everything is new. So
everything is new.
It's it literally is fresh slate. You can be whoever. And I do remember being I was a very, I believe, and Mom, if you're listening, maybe you'll disagree with this, I think for the most part I was a pretty well-behaved kid growing up. Similar to you, I didn't have detentions or silent lunch or and any of those types of reprimands, or have a letter go home about behavior or anything like that. But on this particular trip, I remember that somehow, some way, I think I sort of became maybe a little bit of like the beacon of rebellion.
You were the jokester.
I was the jokester, and I think part of it was because I had been on one of these trips before, and so I had like a lot of like knowledge base about how it was going to go, the way things worked, like how it all came together and whatever. So I think I had like the first level of comfort of everybody there who else was just kind of like trying to find their bearings, and so then I was able to like, I don't know, assume like a leadership position. It's funny in a couple of different ways. One of them is that at the time we all had call signs, you know, and that's how we like communicated with each other. You were like,
Red 5?
Right, yeah. Except mine, literally, and this is no joke, genuinely was Rubber Ducky.
Ben, you this whole time have had genuine call sign Rubber Duck.
Yeah. This is Rubber Duck over.
This is Rubber Duck off the starboard side.
It was the best. But yeah, so I was Rubber Duck, and everybody called me that all week.
Wow.
And it was like a badge of honor, honestly.
Wow.
Like, you know, I mean, everybody knows that rubber ducks are an incredibly and innately cool object anyway.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, I would even say it was like that +1.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. But anyway, my rebellious streak is really what I thought was particularly interesting. And I'm only thinking about it because we were talking about canoes, and I think it's kind of a funny story.
Right. What rebellious things did you do at Phoebe Needles there, Rubber Duck?
Well, I know. I'm making it sound cool. But so you'll remember that growing up, I was quite the fan of a diving board. So
oh yeah,
very frequently would do lots of varying acrobatics off the old plywood. I don't even know, what is a diving board made out of?
Not plywood.
Probably not plywood. Fiberglass, maybe.
Probably something that doesn't break when wet.
Right. Yeah. But so I remember that I think I was like, they taught us this trick actually while we were out in the lake, where if you and your boatmate both like leaned backwards, you could actually both dunk your head into the water, because your weight going in the opposite directions would actually keep the boat balanced.
Yeah.
And so
I can already see where this is going.
I don't know. I think maybe. No, it just meant that like we got like strangely comfortable like with the canoes themselves. And so at some point in time, I started the challenge for myself, which was to see if I could like, do tricks off of like the end of the canoe.
Oh, naturally.
Like naturally. Yeah, of course. And I remember in one particular instance, we were just in this like big flat area. And so I was standing on like the front of the canoe, and I like dove underwater. And like the second that I dove underwater, it was the case that my hands, this is like another one of those moments where it's like maybe what really happened was I got severely injured, but my quantum immortality branch was like, nope, let's turn. But so, the instructor who was with us, I think like was constantly having to like be like, Ben, no, stop. Ben, no, stop. So I jump in, my hands immediately block my face from literally shattering just my whole face on a rock. And it's like, I was like, oh my gosh. Like I just dove into what I thought
death.
What I thought was just flat open water, and instead I caught a rock with my hands and like almost smashed my face. And I remember popping up and being like about to freak out, and then the counselor was like, "You do not dive off the canoe, never head first. Do you have any idea what could be down there?" And
like, I do now.
No, I was like the exact opposite. I played it off. I was like, you were just taking this way too seriously. Meanwhile, I'm like literally like sweating. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just avoided certain death.
Oh man. That's funny. Okay, so this is a semi-adjacent, I would say, story. Is that like I was in a situation where I was definitely no one knew me going in for the most part. Okay. Like it was a bachelor party for my buddy Ross. So other than Ross, who obviously chose all of the members of his wedding party.
Sure.
They all sort of knew each other from school, or by being related to Ross's extended family or something. Sure. They were all a little bit familiar with each other. I was definitely like, I'm the friend you met in the town you met your wife, and that's why you're here.
Right. You were the representative for like from the new town.
From the new town you moved to. Like that's my role at this one. So I'm like, I don't know you guys. So there is like that. Like, I guess it can be a little bit different here, or like you feel easier to break free or whatever. So the bachelor party was on a lake, and one of the things Ross wanted to do was just, rent a boat, go out, do some tubing, drink some beers or whatever.
Sure.
And so someone goes out, they go do the tube, and I think a couple people did it. They fell off, or it was pretty clear that the lake was a bit choppy that day. And as is the case when you have just a bunch of guys together, they're gonna try and like whip the tube over the waves and get you going and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm like, okay, I'll get out there. I'll go out and do it because I want to have fun. I want to participate. And I'm out on the tube and I'm like, okay, my plan even from the beginning was, here's what I'm gonna do in order to like be impressive. At some point, when I dismount, I'm gonna do a backflip off the tube. Oh, this is my move. Because I'm like, I've done like backflips into water before off boats, and I'm like, with the momentum of the boat, I know that all I will need is the smidgenest bit of air and some leaning back.
To
and do a full backflip.
Takes care of the rest.
Gravity takes care of the rest. You'll barely be in the air, and it'll look awesome. This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, this is gonna be great. I can't wait. All I need for them to do at some point is be driving the boat straight.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Well, let me tell you, Ben, some like 25 minutes later of me just being back there, they have done nothing but go in a figure eight. For like half an hour. I finally just like my muscles are dead. I am like holding on. I'm like, I'm waiting for you to go straight. Just go straight ever. Like, that's all I'm waiting for the whole time. And they never do. Eventually, I'm just like, I got to get off. Like, I have no way to communicate. Just like, go straight or stop or anything. You can't talk to the people on the boat.
Oh, sure.
You're way back on the tube.
And probably if you were like, hey, could you go straight, please? They'd be like, no.
I know. It's not like, hey, I want to do something. It's like the element of surprise is part of it. Like,
it's
you
true.
have to catch them off guard by doing the backflip.
Everybody's like,
I know. And finally, I just like let go. They're like, "Man, you were out there forever." And then I can't even tell them why. I can't be like, "Yeah, I was trying to be cool."
Right? Yeah. Tubing is like one of those really funny things where I feel like when you're back there, I do feel like you feel cool. Like I do, at least. I don't know. Like whenever it's like, how long can I hang on? And like they're gonna whip it like crazy, and I'm gonna like throw my body weight around and try to like stay on the tube and stuff. But then also it's like compared to the other available sports for being pulled behind a boat, which would include like wakeboarding or water skiing. Yeah, those are both sports that are like a lot cooler to anybody else. And so it's sort of like when was the last time you ever passed somebody else on the boat and you looked over at the person on the tube and you were like, that guy is a badass.
Okay, yeah. Have you ever done like I don't even know what to call it, like the rocket?
I don't know.
Okay,
I feel like I've seen like a hot dog shaped thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a hot dog sort of thing. It's basically just like a very long tube that can sit like 5 people in a row.
Okay.
And then it's got like maybe like 2 bumpers on the side for like a little stability or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can drag it behind the boat. I've only done it like on one day ever, and it was at Boy Scout camp at Clater Lake.
People are going to think our whole life was camp.
So much of me growing up was camp or camping or Boy Scouts or something.
That's true.
So much time in the woods, so much time on the lake. But one of the things you could do, one of the merit badges that is you could earn at Camp Clater Lake around here was water skiing, and this gave you access while you were doing that. It was sort of interesting. They had like a big bar that just sort of hung out the side of the boat, so that I guess kids could like hang onto the bar and stand onto the skis. So they weren't like prevented you from needing to be like pulled out of the water, which is hands down the hardest part of water skiing.
It's true. Once you stand up, just keep standing.
But let me tell you, the speedboat they had at Clater Lake is, I think, the fastest boat I've ever been on in my life.
No way.
Yes.
Interesting.
And the guy running the speedboat was like on the water skiing school, team for whatever college he was hailing from.
Okay,
as he was camp counseling these Boy Scouts.
Okay.
Right? So he was very comfortable with the boat. And I think the most fun part of his job every single week was getting that boat up to speed and then taking, with no warning at all, just the hardest left turn he could. Because I remember to this day just being on one side of the boat and just all of a sudden being on the other side of the boat.
Oh,
just
gosh.
Slam. Bam. Anyway, I don't know.
That doesn't totally seem safe.
It does not seem safe. I think about it back then. I'm like, man, in the moment I was like, man, I was not prepared. I should have been, like, I felt like I was at fault. As I think back on it, I'm like, that guy was just having the time of his life whipping kids around the back of his boat.
It seems like the type of thing where it's like if his boss knew, he would have been fired.
It does. It would have been so easy to fall out. I don't know. Anyway, no harm done. He was definitely like the cool counselor or whatever as well, though.
Sure,
Can you tell? But they had the rocket back there, and like on the last day of after everyone's kind of like qualified for their water ski badge, you do the rocket.
Okay.
Or maybe like once a week your particular troop would get to do it. I don't know. But I remember it being the absolute best thing. Like I so covet as an adult doing the rocket again and having like a group of people. But it was another thing where like I don't think I was always considered like the leader of my Boy Scout troop, but let me tell you, on the rocket I was the leader.
I was in charge.
I knew what was going on.
Red leader
like,
checking in.
Everyone listened to me. Lean left, lean right. We are not, because it was very easy to fall off. And it's like as soon as one person falls off, that's it.
Okay,
you're
it's
done.
all over. Yeah,
they got to circle back and get that kid. So
well, I mean, the good news is now. I mean, I do have a boat now.
So I know, like, man. You say you have a boat, but I'm pretty sure the Mamie could handle the rocket. Maybe.
Okay. If we want to bring this conversation full circle, I do have something fun for this summer on the lake, which is that I got a towable tube that is in the shape of a gigantic rubber duck.
Oh, there we go.
It's true. It's gonna be awesome. I cannot wait to bust it out.
So you could, if conceivably, if we get some like walkie talkies or something, you could be driving the boat, pulling people on the rubber duck, and you could be like, rubber duck to rubber duck.
Oh my God, we're doing it. Someone send me a link for waterproof walkie-talkies.
Waterproof walkies.
Oh my, rubber duck to rubber duck. We're taking a big left there, rubber duck.
Roger that, rubber duck, quack, quack.
Oh, it's going to happen.
I can't wait. We're
going to have way too much fun with this.
Absolutely we are.
We should just have an entire video that we make that's just literally like nothing but saying the word rubber duck way too many times.
Way too many times.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. Transition. And we're back.
Yay!
Yeah, I love coming out of transitions. Cool. Okay, so kind of exciting announcement, but sort of. Yeah, it is exciting. I'm gonna call it full-fledged exciting.
Full-fledged.
So we talk a lot on the show here about how over on the Patreon we have like a merch tier where we come up with some like really, really, really cool pieces of merch.
Yeah.
And thus far, that has basically been the only available way to get a piece of popcorn culture merch. But that ends today.
We have developed our first ever available to the public piece of popcorn culture merch.
Yes. So if you would like a way to show your pop colors without actually like committing to that Patreon tier, we have designed, and after our very fun conversation last week about the new game of Wordle, we have a Wordle themed t-shirt that kind of features like a bunch of popcorn culture buzzwords, if you will.
Jazz words, if I will.
Buzzwords.
Well, okay.
I feel like there's an innate buzziness about the words. Nobody calls them jazz words
yet, but maybe they should.
It's catching on.
People are saying jazz words.
No.
Jazz just has hands. There's no buzz hands.
I was gonna say buzz hands.
Buzz hands.
Buzz hands. It feels like, who has buzz hands? Emperor Palpatine.
Put down the buzz hands, palps.
He's like, I invented the buzz hands.
I invented buzz hands.
Yeah. Everybody was all about jazz hands.
Everyone was all about jazz hands. I came in. Anyway, Some really great jazz words on the shirt.
There's some really great jazz words on the shirt, including the word jazzy and the word buzzy.
Yes.
Well, I'm very excited about it. I think the shirt looks incredibly cool. It's like one of these things, like, I don't know if you, I'm sure you have, but like we even have one for Carlin Brothers Coffee where it says like Carlin and Carlin and Carlin and Coffee. I feel like for a long period of time, there were these like, it was like a shirt style that like just about any brand could do
because it was just like Helvetica font.
Yeah.
Like and a list.
Yeah, and a list. And so, yeah, I mean, like, you know, you could do it like for Disney and it could be like churros and waffles and
Magic and Mickey.
And yeah, exactly. But this time what we've done is it's like a Wordle solve. And it's
not the most strategic game of Wordle. I'll admit.
I would say that it's more Ben tier approach.
Let me tell you something, Ben. The Wordle, I'm sure if you haven't heard, was purchased by the New York Times for like 7 figures.
Yeah.
So
like a really, really, really shocking.
Absolutely shocking. Great payday for the person who invented it. But as ever, it's like as soon as you heard that, you're like, oh no, are they about to ruin? Is the magic about to be lost? Is the Wordle about to be gone? And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the Wordle has been significantly harder since NYT took over.
I feel like I have heard that sentiment.
You've heard all that about the Wordle?
I've heard all that about the Wordle.
Okay.
Yeah. After Mr. Wardle sold the Wordle to the...
Was his name Wardle? That can't be right.
I think it is.
That's not true.
I think it's close.
James Waddle here.
I think it's close. But yeah, so I have been having fun with it. I've been trying to get Alice to play it for the past several days. And finally last night, she was just like sitting at the computer and I had like the tab open at home. And I was like, boom. And I just like put in the word, you know, like ghost. Because it's my Wordle word.
Right.
And I was like...
you've settled on a Wordle word.
No, I haven't really. I just thought it was funny.
So many people have been asking me what my word is. And some people have figured it out.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Once you know, this is like a game you can play. See if you can figure out my Wordle word, because if you solve the puzzle, then you conceivably can reverse engineer my word based on my results every day.
That's true.
Right?
That's very cool. So if you follow Jay on Twitter.
Yeah, you can probably figure it out. Some people figured it out fairly quickly and like messaged me, and I will tell you if you've got it right.
Yeah.
So
I think
I'm
the
not
whole
like that secretive about it.
The whole idea about withholding is mostly just so that you're allowing the organic nature of the game to do exactly what it
exactly.
should do. So,
like, because I mean, that's the thing. If you figure out my word, though, then just be aware that if you see my tweet, you will be able to glean information from it, which maybe you consider an advantage, but everyone will know you cheated, except probably they won't.
Except probably they won't.
How are they going to know? They're going to know. They're going to know.
How would they know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we invented our very own Wordle shirt, which is incredibly buzzy and has inherent jazz hands when you wear it.
That's right. I can tell you the rest of the words. I think they were pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because this was tricky coming up with like 5-letter words that really related to the pop, but that like you like if you know, but they're also not so vague. You know?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's true. Yep.
So of course we have jazzy and buzzy, which they were tricky to incorporate because like if you're playing a real game of Wordle, never on earth would your first guess include two Z's.
Let alone your second guess also include two Z's.
Especially after the first guess confirmed that there was no Z.
You never know.
You never know.
Maybe there was a glitch in the Matrix.
So anyway, someone was really determined. They were like, jazzy? No, I'm doubling down, quadrupling down on Z. But so we have jazzy, buzzy. Then we go to lasso,
which I like because it's very subtle. Like because I mean, it's not subtle if you listen to the show because we talk about Ted Lasso all the time. But lasso is also just a word.
It's just a word, but it's also his last name.
It's true. It's true. Yep.
So whoever's playing this game is really committed to like, there's a double letter.
Yeah.
2 Z's? Fine. How about 2 S's?
Z's and S's look similar.
They look similar. They're basically mirrors of each other. So we go from lasso to ducks to bingo, and then finally to corny, which is the solve.
It's pretty cool. It's
a pretty
cool.
good shirt.
So it's going to be available for pre-order now over at supercarlinbrothers.store.
Yes.
If you would like to get in on the very first ever piece of publicly available popcorn culture Wordle.
Yes.
Shirtle.
Yes. Get the Wordle Shirtle after a mere 116 episodes.
We're there.
We're there. It's finally time. Thank you for listening so much.
Transition.
Ben, there was an event over the weekend, this past weekend.
There was.
There was.
It was a football sporting event known for its notoriety.
Yes.
Quite large event.
Quite large. Some would call it the Super Bowl.
Well, they may. They might. If we're allowed to even say that. I'll be curious to know whether or not Ethan bleeps you saying it, because aren't you not supposed to say it?
This is like one of those things where at this point I can't tell if it's a joke or if people are just genuinely not allowed to say Super Bowl, or if it's like you're not allowed to say Super Bowl when you're like if you are like a radio station hosting a Super Bowl party, you can't advertise it as a Super Bowl party or something.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, like you have to advertise it as a big game. But it'd be silly to say that no one could say Super Bowl.
Maybe it's like Voldemort.
Yeah.
And if you say Super Bowl, like the Super Bowl might show up.
Yeah. Hey. Yo. Anyway,
the game who must not be named.
The game that shall not be named. That's right. Oh, goodness me. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say Super Bowl. If we find out later that we're not supposed to say that, Ethan, you can just bleep me out or put like a quack sound or something. You know,
that would be funny.
Whenever we need to be bleeped for saying the game that shall not be named. But this, I think, was an interesting Super Bowl, not for the football itself, which I will say was like a very good game in and of itself, and it capped off like the best postseason in recent memory for the NFL. It was like 7 insane games in a row, coming down to less than a field goal. The game ended that way too. That was really good. But what I found really interesting about this particular Super Bowl was that for the first time ever, it felt like there was a definite decision in like changing the like target audience to our generation.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
I did. Especially with the halftime show.
Yes.
It felt like this was, I remember when we were kids growing up, the halftime show was this like thing that I knew was important, but so often the artist who was playing was someone who I had never heard of before. Or it could be someone who the name I had heard of, but like as we've said on so many different occasions, we're not very good at music, so it's kind of like I'm not really excited for the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Like,
it's like Prince, great. Yeah, I know, I've heard of you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I do think you're exactly like on point though, because this year it was very interesting how the halftime show featured like Eminem and Dr. Dre and 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg and Mary J. Blige.
Yep.
And like, so you have this lineup of people, all of whom I can name, all of the songs of which I actually know.
Yeah,
and it's
right.
it's like, man, check this out this year. It's like they finally got it. And it's like, wait a second.
Wait a minute. All these people were really popular in like 2005.
Yeah, I know. And then it's kind of like, oh man.
Uh-oh.
Does this mean
I know.
This mean?
And I was like, wait a minute. My whole life I've been like, it feels like the halftime show artists are always like for my parents or something. I was like, it finally felt like there was like people I knew, and I was like, oh no.
Do you
wait
think?
A minute.
Yeah. So it's like, did they change who they were targeting, or have they continued to target the exact same?
Or like have they always been targeting down like the 35 to 45 sort of like age range?
Yeah,
maybe not. Neither of us are that old. Bad example. The 30 to 40 age range.
Right. Yeah. Like is that the case? Is that what we're witnessing?
Right.
Here and now we've just aged into it.
We have aged into it, and eventually we will like age out of it.
Because that was the other thing, is that I know that in our family chat, the Super Carlin family chat that we have with like our younger brother Tyler, all the wives and our parents and stuff, that we were like, what did you guys think of the halftime show? And I think Mom was kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think you're exactly right. It's kind of the type of thing where she's like maybe she was on the other end of the spectrum. Like this music is now like too, what is it? Like maybe she's too old for this round of music, but then also it seems like the generation below us, people born, in the year 2005 or something, are like, who are these people?
Yeah, well, this was a very like mind-blowing moment for me, is that Beth leads like a little like youth group thing at church with all these teenage girls and stuff, and she was asking them about the Super Bowl. You guys gonna watch? What are you doing? What are you excited for the halftime show? And they were like, I've never even heard of those people. And it was like, excuse me, you've never heard of Snoop Dogg? Like specifically, like you asked them. She was like, yeah, I asked them. They never heard of Snoop Dogg. I was like, but
how?
No, but no.
How?
But how? I don't understand.
I know. I mean, I think this is just the cyclical nature of like
this is it. Yeah.
It's like this aging process that happens is that it's always happening.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over again. And really what I think probably what you realize as you get older is like the number of times that this exact thing has happened, the number of times that you think you are like immune to something.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm just here. Man.
Yeah.
So
getting old. So maybe we're not bad at music, Ben. Maybe just music has been older than us this whole time.
I think I'm still bad at music.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I was
can't.
Maybe trying to give us a break there, but no, I can't. We're just bad at it.
Yeah, I'm still not there. I feel like even like the Encanto songs, I feel like I have been trying. I've been listening to them basically nonstop, and I've been trying really hard. There's only like 6 of them that are like, you know, the like main songs.
Yeah,
it's like at this point now, I probably listen to all of them like 300 times a piece.
You should have it.
Right? It's like I don't.
Man, I'll tell you what. Speaking of Encanto, I've been listening to it a lot, and there is a line in "We Don't Talk About Bruno" after "Are you telling the story or am I?"
Yes.
Do you know what he says there after that?
I'm sorry, Meeveedagwan.
Yes. But it is like the hardest one to like. I feel like that line in particular is really hard to sing. Like if you're saying like "Sorry, Meeveedagwan," because he has like this like very like flowy like. When I don't know who the artist is, but when Tio Felix delivers it, it's like very fluid and it just comes out. And I've like, you like look at the words and I'm like, I don't know how you can say the words in this like way that allows you to like raise up there at the end. Like
to get that cadence right. I mean, and I think probably it's because there is that like little bit of like Spanglish going on.
Yeah.
And so it's probably the case that especially like Mi Vida is this thing where like if you are like a native Spanish speaker, then like your muscle memory on like saying those words in that way are just like flow that much better.
Yeah.
That's the best explanation that I have. Like I can't stress it enough. I'm not very good at music.
Oh, I understand. So I bring it up because like I keep getting to that part of the song and being so frustrated with myself for not being able to do it. So I have instead, this has been my new strategy for trying to get through that section of the song, is I have instead, rather than trying to say each individual word, I have tried to like make up just a new word that encompasses all the sounds, which seems like it's just doing the same thing.
Oh, I'll have to call that a word clump.
Yeah, it's just it's Meeveedagwan. Meeveedagwan. If you can say Meeveedagwan, you will get it.
And that's easier for you?
It's easier for me to picture the word Meeveedagwan. Meeveedagwan, like, see, like you can get it there, and it is all the right sounds. Like it gets the same message across, but I'm thinking of it as one big word sound rather than like Meeveedagwan. It's Meeveedagwan.
Okay. I got you. I am trying to think of the song I feel like growing up that was like incredibly popular and like for literally, I don't know, 15 years, probably even longer than that. I didn't know what they were saying. And now...
Oh, no.
Like we're going down, ba-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. I don't know the words.
You don't know what the words are?
No.
Oh, man. Okay, hang on.
Swing in.
We're going down. It's so infuriating that like I feel like I've even learned them. And now still can't pull them out of my head.
This is the most infuriating thing. Like I think the same thing is true of the lyrics "Semi-Charmed Kind of Life." Like that's the name of the song, and I didn't know what they were saying when they got to the words "Semi-Charmed Kind of Life."
Yeah. Okay, we're going down in an earlier round.
Oh man, no!
Down in an earlier round. Yeah, see, I feel like not even close.
Wow, you said that, and it's like it's blowing my mind. It's like filling in blanks for like 30 years right now.
I know. Yeah, it's
whoa.
How do? Oh my gosh, can I tell you another one? Because I have been absolutely loving Bo Burnham's special Inside.
Okay.
And so I just downloaded the soundtrack. So I've just been like, as I've been driving like to work and stuff, I've sort of been like in a lull between like listening to books and stuff. So this is just what I've been listening to lately on repeat. And in the office one day, I feel like I had this like really embarrassing moment where I was like thinking about it in my head, and I was like, man, there's like this one line. The song is called like White Woman's Instagram, and it's just like, it is so like absurdly on point as to just like a bunch of things that you maybe wouldn't have ever been able to like put together as like common cliche things that you've probably seen people post like
so many times
on Instagram before.
Right.
And like there's this one line where I always loved it because it says, I thought that it said goat cheese sandwich. And I always liked that he like sort of used this word Sammich. And I remember I was like talking to everybody in the office. I was like, man, like that was like such a good pull of a word. It's like he didn't go with sandwich. He used like this sort of like very cutesy sandwich.
Right.
Like I like sandwiches.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody was like, he says salad. And I was like,
goat cheese salad?
What? And I was like, it was like one of these situations where I was so embarrassed because it was like, I had just been thinking about it myself. And it was like this thing that I liked about the song. And I was just like, nobody was even talking about it. I was like, yes, listen to Bo Burnham. There's just one thing I really like. He says goat cheese sandwich. And it's just like crickets in the room. And I was like, now every time I listen to it, I'm reminded of this moment.
You're reminded of it.
So what I'm trying to do now is I'm actually putting like salt in the wound right now. Like it hurts me to talk about this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But the good news is that maybe it'll cause it to heal.
Yeah.
By talking about it. By discussing
you
it.
will address it head on, and now it won't hurt anymore.
Now it's like when your parents told you like in middle school to like just like laugh, you know, like lean into the joke maybe, you know, it's like, it's really hard to do.
It is.
Because you have to break away from all of your internal programming and sort of override maybe the potential to be embarrassed or having your feelings hurt, and instead replace that with like positivity or like going with the flow or humor, which like feels so far apart. But I genuinely think it might be a skill.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, like, in my early days of middle school, this was something that I struggled with really hard.
Yeah.
And I think I've maybe talked about this before, but my whole life I've always been really bad at comebacks because it never really makes sense to me why anybody would just be mean to begin with.
Right.
And so, like, it's not really, like, in my instinctual nature. So, like, if somebody did say something mean to me, I usually, I didn't have the ability to put gloves on to begin with. I was just gloves off, and like my comeback would just be cruel and really mean. And it's like, I never would have said that if you. It's like, you started it.
Like started, bro.
I didn't want to say something mean. Who said something mean? Like unprompted. And where was I going with this? Yeah, so I think that like in the early days, I would always struggle because I would try to come up with comebacks. And then I think over time, I finally learned how to laugh at myself. And now I'm doing that exact thing. It's goat cheese salad, not goat cheese sandwich, you silly head.
Man, I have a story like this. And man, I'm having so many weird memories today.
Okay, good.
On the pop.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, this is 7th grade English class.
Whoa.
Which was a weird class because we had this like block. It was like reading and writing, but it was reading before lunch, and then you'd go to lunch and come back to the same classroom with the same teacher and the same people and do writing.
Okay.
So it was very like just like a break in the middle of your like block to go have lunch, come back. Anyway, not important. I just remember that as well.
Okay.
So part of the writing every day is you'd have like a writing prompt put on the board. You'd have like 20 minutes to write or something about whatever it was. I don't remember. But it doesn't matter what it was about because afterwards, people could like volunteer to like read what they wrote. Let me tell you, who never volunteered was myself because I didn't want to read that.
Really?
But, yeah, I did not do it. But perhaps part of the reason I never would have was because there was like 3 to 4 other students who would volunteer every single day. And no matter what the writing prompt was, I can tell you what would happen in their story, which was that I would die. This was like it was intended like as a joke, I guess, but like at some point in the story, like I was always a character and I would always die.
In
seventh grade.
People's writing?
Yes, in other people's writing. Yes, and it would be like in some like comical fashion.
Other people were writing stories about you.
Yes.
Dying.
It does seem like not allowed when I'm saying it out loud. On the daily, Ben. On the daily.
Did it just become like I mean, I don't even feel right calling it an inside joke, but was it like this like running gag? Like,
I guess it was like a running gag almost. Yeah, I was like, oh, guess what? This is another funny thing. And I remember it at first like bothering me, like, and I think that was sort of almost like I can't, because they like I would have called these people my friends. Okay, it's like who I sat with at lunch and stuff. So I don't know, but I remember at some point just being like, okay, well, if they're going to do this every day, I would just start like acting out what they were describing as it was happening, like just sitting in my chair, like and then like someone, you know, I don't know what would happen, but I would just like fall out of my chair, on cue or whatever. And I could tell at some point, like, they did not like that I was leaning into it. Like, it was like taking the Mickey out of the joke or something.
Interesting.
I know. Man, this is a very weird. Now that I'm thinking, like, how was this allowed? Why was this going on?
It feels mean.
It does feel mean. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
But I remember, but the point is, upon leading into it, it definitely was like well, this isn't as fun anymore. Sure.
Yeah. Well, okay. So on that note, so speaking of things that you can lean into and also writing prompts.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
segue.
Oddly, I'm able to actually combine both of those. So at one point in time on the pop, I told a story about how I went to jail.
I remember.
And it basically was this. It was like an odd story, and I think that like I've always been somewhat at peace with it because like the circumstances around what led to it, like I think there was a small part of me. The very, very, very brief version of it is that I was a high school age student. I was coming out of off-roading. A good friend was on the roof of the vehicle, like hanging on to like the bike rack or whatever. We were going very slowly, but still. Yeah,
you're driving in the woods on a dirt road, coming back from a night of camping and some libations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically, like a park ranger comes over. He pulls me over because he can very evidently see that there is someone on the roof of my vehicle where people are not supposed to be. And so I got ticketed with that. And then as you mentioned, there were libations in the vehicle and we were underage. And there was this moment where basically the officer was like, well, one of you can take the blame for all like 11 people in our party, because it was like 2 vehicles, like a convoy. And you can just say it was like all of it was yours and that nobody else had anything to do with it. Or everyone gets the ticket. And it was kind of like one of these things where I think I don't know, like I ended up being the fall guy.
Yeah, you were the fall man.
Yeah. So, and it was kind of like one of those things where I think I was trying to like, I don't know, possibly like either do the right thing or, like forge a friendship or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, still as like a 18-year-old who is like 1 week away from high school graduation, this is a pretty massive disruptor in my life at this point in time. Like everybody's talking about like how bright
never a good time to go to jail.
Not really. No. But everybody's talking about like how bright their future is and like we're all, going to college and everything good is in front of us. And I'm like, well, not me. I mean, he still was like lots of good things still obviously were ahead, but it was definitely like a huge drag. But so it like I got to my first class, my first day of college, and my writing professor basically had given us this exact writing prompt where he wanted you to write about your summer break. And the big thing was he was like, get my attention right away. Like, how can you like write some, like whatever it is, like you need to figure out, like when we record a Super Carlin Brothers video, for example, everything that happens before like the little intro music plays, like with our heads and everything, we refer to that as the hook. Like this is basically us making the argument as to why you should watch the rest of the video.
Right.
And so that was effectively the assignment is
practice the hook.
Practice the hook.
Right.
And so, and the idea, the prompt otherwise was to discuss the summer that you just came off of.
Right.
And this is basically like the keynote item that happened in this particular period of time. And obviously now this is something that I will talk about. I can look back on it, and there's like the ability to have separated from it and not like feel a lot of it or anything. But at that point in time, it was still incredibly fresh, but it was still the main thing that came to mind for me to write about. And so I did, and, you know, turned in my assignment. It was like a Monday, turned it in on a Wednesday. And then on Friday, the teacher walks in and he's like, "There is one of you who wrote the best hook I have ever seen."
and it was you?
And it was me.
Yay!
I know, which was like, yay. And he's like, "Can I read it to the class?" And I was like,
uh-oh.
And, you know, it was just like, I don't know. It was like one of these things where writing prompt, leaning into it.
Yeah. Did he read it?
He did.
Oh, nice.
He did. And then like everybody in the room slowly, like, you know, I'm like sitting in like the middle back or whatever. Like as it
like
goes
slowly
through,
disappearing.
everybody's
into the wall.
head is slowly turning to look at me, and I'm like,
I had a bad summer.
I had a bad summer, but I'm here now.
I'm here.
Anyway, and that teacher, I would say, was one of the most impactful teachers, though.
Oh, excellent!
In all of college, and it happened to be literally my first professor that I had.
Man, there you go.
I know.
Good stuff. My first professor in college was for art appreciation, so I don't even remember their name.
Oops. Maybe not the same experience.
Not the same experience. Yeah, I was like, go practice drawing this thing so you can have an appreciation for that. All right, this is not so good.
No. Well,
yep.
There you go. I feel like you got into art. You can draw reasonably well.
I guess so. I can draw, like if I'm looking at like a drawing already. Okay. Like I can like replicate it sometimes. I don't know. I'm not as great. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad skill to know whether or not you're good at it.
This is one of those things though, is that like, yeah, if I'm going to draw a picture, like I can't picture what I'm trying to draw in my head at all. Mm-hmm. It's almost like, yeah, just so if I'm looking at like the shell on the coffee table in front of us, then it's like I can go through and try to like, you know, replicate very poorly, but I at the very least have the item in front of me that I can like, you know, visually do it with. Take the shell away and it's like I can't even picture what a shell looks like anymore.
Yeah, what
like,
are shells?
What do shells look like?
What
and
do
like,
shells?
What are the characteristics of a shell? So whenever I'm seeing like somebody like drawing something and they know to like add like shading around like the space next to like somebody's nostril or something, I'm like, you think about that?
Right.
Like, is that practice or is that just like your brain works like differently?
I assume there's a certain amount of both. I think a lot, because it's always been such an interesting thing to me that you could like teaching art and like this would make your painting better, and it's like what is the subjectivity of better, you know?
That is
like,
very true.
Like, oh, if I add shading that'll make it better, or is that even what I'm going for? And it's like, no, it'll definitely just make it better. It's just good skills to have. So I think there are certain like techniques and skills that'll just generally improve anything you're drawing, that can just be taught to you, and then it's just a matter of practice.
Wouldn't it be really interesting if there is an afterlife?
Yeah.
And when you arrive, you discover that there are like 4 different types of brains that like all humans have.
Yeah.
And they all have like one very unique but very different way of like approaching everything.
Right.
So like in the way that like I can't picture the shell in my head, like the people who can, like they just have a different, like a literally different brain than me. And these overlords, as it were, are attempting to like perfect the human brain and like figure out like which one is able to like best navigate the waters. It's like each one has like a small modification. We're all part of a grand experiment.
We'll get it there. Several billion attempts in at this point.
I know. There's lots of data.
There's lots of data. We gotta be getting close.
Or maybe we have been taught to believe that billions is a lot of data, But in reality, it's like, that's not really that much
Pretty
data.
insignificant.
Yeah,
Whatever.
It's like when I saw How the Grinch Stole Christmas for the first time and realized that, like, the entire city of Whoville exists like on a snowflake that's falling down. It's like, why would anybody show me that? Why would anybody show me that? Now, are we just on a snowflake? Is that what's happening?
Is that what's happening?
Is our entire ecosystem,
dude? Sometimes, yeah.
Are stars other snowflakes?
Basically, yeah, right? Man, I just saw, sometimes TikTok will just show me things and I'm like, man, that was unbelievable. The one I saw recently that it was a guy teaching a class and he was talking about this mega telescope that they had for space or whatever. And he's like, when you look up at the sky, you can see tons of stars, right? There's like tons of stars up there, but there's probably some just like blank spots as well. Like where, maybe if you were really out in the wild, there wouldn't be any blank spots. But if you just walk outside your house, you can see lots of stars, but there's just open areas where you could point the telescope and there'd be nothing up there, right?
Sure, yep.
So he's like, so how's this? And he's like, he shows a picture from like a blank spot of sky, and this telescope, can, it's like a long exposure and it goes for however long and it can go this deep into space and whatever. And it comes back and it's just like, full. There's like no blank space,
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
And it's like, yeah, okay. Now what you're seeing here all of a sudden is tons and tons of stars. And he's like, this is like what exists. We will never be able to see this with our eye, but pointing the telescope at a completely blank part of the sky, this is what's out there. And he's like, and then let's go a level deeper, because then we're not looking at just stars. Each one of those stars is an entire galaxy. And you're like, oh no. It's just like, there's so much out there. It's like, it's so big. It's so big and you can't even think about it. And you're like, and here you are with your tiny problems and you're barely a Whoville on a snowflake. And,
I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is very difficult to just even begin to
so
attempt
big
to understand the size of it. But I think I saw a Hank Green TikTok maybe that was explaining this, a very similar kind of phenomenon, but and it's possible I'm wrong, but I'm gonna like just pose the idea because I think that at the very least it will almost make sense. But it's pretty much that, like, the way that we know that like the universe or the galaxy or whatever the biggest thing out there is actively expanding is because, like, if not, like, because we can see stars at night, but because the entire night sky isn't nothing but white. Does that make sense?
Oh.
Like, there is a scenario, it should be the case, because space is infinite, that the entire night sky should just be a wall of white.
Oh, I see.
We should see nothing but stars, because anywhere you look, somewhere out into that distance,
light coming towards you.
But it's just like,
but it's getting further away, so it doesn't actually reach us.
There's that,
Right.
and it takes so long because it's so far away for the light to finally get there. Because I believe it's also possibly the case that some stars that we see are stars that could have already died, but like the light is still
coming. Yeah. Well, that's weird to think about.
It's incredibly weird to think about.
Does it seem like at some point you should look up and there'd just be like a few more stars in the sky, like some light should start reaching you or something?
I suppose those are probably like the most faintest of stars. Like whatever this professor was seeing with his telescope, it must be those.
Must be.
Like they're the ones that they're like on their way.
Right. Okay. Well, maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Like what if there was ever like the South Star?
The North
like
Star, the
South
North Star.
It always tells you where to go.
Well, the
and
South Star.
And then there's the South Star.
Yeah, the South Star. And it would have a really bad navy.
Wow. Full circle.
Full circle.
Full circle. You're part of some type of ship-related constellation. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so there's another topic that I want to discuss because it occurred to me last week when I was re-watching, listening, doing the premiere of The Pop back. You and I had a conversation about contentment, like the ability to be content with your life. And it occurred to me that when I was watching it, I was like, it's not even the first time in recent history that Jay and I have had this exact conversation on The Pop. I think that this is at least maybe like 15 pops ago. I'm just going to like shoot it out there.
Shoot it out there, like around episode 100.
Yeah, maybe somebody can verify for me. But I feel like there was another point in time where you and I were kind of discussing this idea of the different levels of being content with who you are, what you're doing,
Yeah.
the way that you're approaching life, maybe like where, like what level of like accomplishments maybe you've achieved, what type of like maybe you have like that aspirational car you've always wanted to drive, be able to purchase a house, all of these things that we mark as these like major life accomplishments. And sort of I think what we were discussing last week for me in particular is this issue that I very frequently will have some type of aspiration. I will achieve whatever that thing is and then not really like bask in the glory that is the awesomeness of having achieved it for very long at all. So it's almost like the moment that it's done, it's kind of like, hey, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Right.
You know, and now it's kind of like, now that I've done that, like I need to keep going. I need to keep going.
But the goal every time is to reach a point where you're like stably happy.
Yeah, exactly. Like sustainable.
Like your goal isn't to have like a peak happiness and then return. It's like, if I do this thing, then I'll continue to be happy.
Right. In my mind, it's almost like we're all on the quest for achieving just enough level of success so that we are just happy forever. You know, and I think that it's almost like a misguided thought or belief or projection. So there is a term for it that is called the hedonic treadmill.
Okay.
Or the phenomenon itself is called hedonic adaptation.
Okay.
And I'm going to read it so that I don't butcher it and we can continue to talk from there. But the hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation, is the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. So the idea here is that, like, let's say there is that like real want to go and like buy a new car. Like maybe your car is like the car that like, you know, you got in high school, or it's like it doesn't have like a backup camera or 4-wheel drive or you know, something like that. Like, like you're just like, I'd love to have like the features of today. So, you know, you're like, if I could just get a new car, like it'll just like make heated seats, you know?
Right.
And then you go and you get that new car, and basically it's kind of like the day you get it, there's like this peak, you know, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, like best day ever. Like I got a new car. This is so cool. I'm so happy. And then like, you know, for the following several days or weeks or whatever, what slowly is happening is that you're coming off of a baseline, and that baseline is your standard happiness, which is fairly stable, all things considered. But then you get that peak that brings you up where you're very happy, like I got a new car. And then the days that precede, you're still happier because you're like, you know, like maybe it's been like 2 weeks and you finally get to use those heated seats for the first time because it's the first cold day.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, this is cool. Like I still love my new car. But then eventually, like maybe like 3, 4 months, 6 months later, a year later, you find yourself back at it's kind of like, yeah, I really thought getting that new car was going to like make me happy for longer.
Right.
You know, like why, like, you know, so now it's like, well, now I guess I got to like think of the next thing. And that's the idea of the treadmill is it's sort of like there is this like thing that I want. So I put in effort to get that thing. And like there's like drive and motivation or whatever. And then there is the attainment of the thing. And then there is kind of like the return to normal after the thing, which then the cycle then repeats itself. And so that's where you get the treadmill effect,
right? Because
it's a circle that's just rotating. And what you're always looking for on that horizon is this idea of like, I made it to the top. I am now at the point where I will just like, I did it. I can now be happy forever because these problems have now been solved. And it's like, now I'm good. And the thing is that that's just not a thing.
Right.
And similarly, this can also happen with negative events for what it's worth. Like,
right.
You might have a breakup or whatever, and you might dip down and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad. I'm like, I don't know. I'm never gonna be happy again or something. But then as time goes on, you do find that you actually drift right back up to that middle line. Like an example, I guess also that people gave in the article I was reading about this is like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you might think that winning the lottery would be the best thing ever.
Right.
Like
how all your problems are solved now.
Right. You could pay off every single debt you have. You could purchase new cars for all of your friends and family. You can
retire maybe. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what they say is that most people actually just will, after a period of time, will return to that thing. Like,
right.
and you will need that new fix. And the addictive cycle basically continues. And that is the way that they describe it in psychology, is that being on the treadmill is addictive because it just keeps looping on itself.
Right, because you always do get that little high.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So I think what's interesting about this is that probably, like I was talking about last week, how you and I were very different with this, because it doesn't seem like you find yourself on this treadmill in the same way that I do. Like, where I feel like almost all the time I'm like, well, what's next? Like, what's the new thing?
Yeah.
What can I start now? Like, what's my new project or whatever? And I think in a lot of ways it's fun for me. Like if you've watched my vlog, for example, I think you like, it's even very obvious very quickly, maybe even to me, that like week in, week out, I have a lot of fun being like, what can I do now?
Right.
Like I can try a new thing. Like, let me see how this goes, and I can learn from it. And that's fun. And I do enjoy that aspect of it. But I think the difference is that like that baseline happiness level is sort of something where it's like, that is a fairly constant thing. And what you're attempting to probably really do is raise that line. Like, how do you get that stable line up? And that's something where I feel like somehow, some way, you know, like your brain, I feel like, or, you know, life circumstances or decisions that you made, whatever, I think has led you to like your line rides real high. So I think like, you know, even if your ups and downs or whatever are happening, it's like they exist in like a really good spot. Like you're always like very, very happy with it. And that particular like idea is basically the opposite of, hold on, what's my word again? Hedonic adaptation, which is going to be called the Eudaimonic. Okay, sorry. The Eudaimonic Approach, which is the type of happiness or contentment that is achieved through self-actualization and having meaningful purpose in one's life.
Oh.
It's very interesting to me, because I do think that these are questions that I have asked here on the pop a bunch of times, which is like what is the purpose? How do you achieve self-actualization? Like we're all trying to do these things, you know? And I feel like frequently when I've explained it to you, and it's nice actually for me to have words, like verified words. Yeah. Because I do feel like now I can be like, if anything, I feel like this is just like Jay does this, you know, like this is
it's like, interesting. Reading that I have achieved self-actualization sounds a little lofty, perhaps, but I appreciate, what you mean.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. I mean, self-actualization is probably, again, like a fairly ongoing lifelong quest.
Possibly.
Yeah. No? Do you disagree?
Well, I don't know. The way you phrased it, that like it's like intrinsically what everyone's actively trying to do is like, I'm not sure that is true.
No, okay. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Whether or not your intention is self-actualization is probably different from whether or not it's happening anyway.
Ah, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that would probably be my argument. Like this could be the difference between, and this is just a random example, but like the desire to be a surgeon because surgeons make extremely high salaries, or the desire to be a surgeon because you have like this drive inside of you to be able to help people.
Right.
The end result is that both of those surgeons are going to make a high salary. One of them was doing it for that reason. The other one, it's just a side effect of.
Right. This is exact. I mean, not to always bring everything back to working at the concert venue.
Sure.
But this was very much like a realization I made at some point, which is that like I wasn't really at some point trying to sell more tickets, despite being like working at the market. Like my job, like in my mind, like what I showed up at work to do was to finish my to-do list and see how much stuff I could get done. Okay. And like the end result, sure enough, was that more tickets would be sold, because by knocking stuff off the to-do list, things that would sell tickets would get done.
Yeah.
But like I wasn't approaching it with like I want to sell tickets and get as many people involved in the culture and arts and shows and, you know, like, whatever it was.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't like passionate about people coming to see live entertainment.
Exactly.
You know, but it was like, but I do need a job and I can do all these things, and this is how I approached it. So like, yeah, in that scenario, I was the surgeon who was there for the money, not to like save lives.
Yeah.
But
right.
regardless, whether that surgeon is there to save lives or to make money, the person making money is still saving lives.
That is also true.
Yeah.
That is extremely true. Yeah. And I think that's where it comes down to like what were the respective goals. But I would also say that the person who did it to save lives, I would be willing to bet all of the money that I have to my name is a happier person.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
that is probably like a good piece of self-reflection that you could attempt to have is spending some time with that thought. And like, for what it's worth to the listening people at home, I like, this is like one of those things where it's like, I think I can recognize the need to ask the question, but I don't have an answer to the question. Mm-hmm. And I think that is probably something that like just frustrates me on such a fundamental level.
That's interesting. Cause like a lot of you always find these like very interesting, like textbook names for like the different things you've thought about. And it's like, oh, there is a name for that. Like I found like a wondering for it.
Yeah.
Or like a, whatever it is. And it's like, it was interesting reading through like the hedonic adaptation like notes there, like, oh, this is like what people do. It's like a treadmill. They want this, and then they return to here, and like they, it's like you wonder like, why aren't I ever happier? Even though I get the things I want, why do I always like sort of turn? And it's like I was reading it, and it was like, oh, it's cool that there's a name for this, but like also like it just feels like innate to me. Like I was reading it, I was like, yeah, like, oh, it's cool someone put words to this, but like it just feels known to me. Like this is, of course, this is how it is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I think that's I can sort of agree with it, like to the tune of like when I read it, it almost felt like, yes, these are the words I couldn't articulate, but
yeah, it's like someone has articulated it.
Right. But yeah, I think it's fair to say like that this is something you've known, but I think sometimes it is that knowledge of how to say the words that can quite literally make the difference between...
I think being aware of it, yes, does help.
Yeah, like it's the comprehension of what is actually happening that can give you some measure of control. So anyway, that's a thinker. I'd be very curious to know, listeners at home, which of these two, between the hedonic and eudaimonic styles of approach to life, which one might you fall in, or have you been able to overcome the hedonic lifestyle? Otherwise, I'm actually signing off for reasons that have little to do with how much I have to say.
Okay.
And a lot to do with the fact that our memory card is flashing at us.
Yeah. Whoops.
This is a first. But guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of The Pop. If you have any feedback you would like to send our way, you can send that over to popcornculturepod@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're also on Reddit. Or if you would like to support us, you can do so at patreon.com/popcornculture. Otherwise, until next time,
pop.